Hi, I'm Pastor Stephanie Lape from Cross and Crown Lutheran Church in Rancho Cucamonga, California. Now, some of you know that I really like psychological studies, and I found something really interesting, some research that's been done since the early 90s that I knew nothing about, and I thought was super helpful for me, and so I thought I would share if this might be helpful for you. And that is done primarily by a research psychologist named Elaine Aron. And what she found was that she discovered the trait of high sensitivity. And she calls that HSP, or highly sensitive person. 20% of the population, she has discovered, are an HSP, a highly sensitive person. So you either know somebody that is, or you are one yourself, if 1 out of every 5 people are an HSP. Now, I'm pretty new at discovering this, and so I'm just trying to put into words what I've just recently learned. I mostly learned about this from reading Elaine Aron's book called The Highly Sensitive Person, and taking some tests and seeing if I indeed fit this description. And I very, very much do, and so you might as well. This doesn't mean it's a neurosis. It's not a problem. It's not considered a disorder. It's just a way of processing information. So my first understanding of this was, as a child, people told me I was too sensitive all the time. Not so much my parents, but mostly friends at school or teachers who thought that I took things very deeply and was more sensitive than, I guess, the normal child. So I felt like something was wrong with me, something was flawed. I feel things very deeply. It's not like I'm trying to. It's just sort of how I'm wired. It's how I am and how I've always been. It's not like it started at a certain time in my life. I can't remember not being this way. So I've been told I was too sensitive, and I've been told many times, probably hundreds of times, that I need to not be that way, that I need to develop thicker skin, not let things get to me, and things like that. And the bottom line is that I have learned some skills for sure, but I'm never going to not be a highly sensitive person. So this does not mean, if you're a highly sensitive person, that you are weak, that you are bad, that you are flawed, any more than it would if you were left-handed or something like that. It just means that you're processing things in a way that is relatively unusual. It doesn't mean that you necessarily are an introvert, although approximately 70% of HSPs are introverts and the other 30 are extroverts. I'm right in the middle between the two, introvert and extrovert, so as the tests have shown. So I can relate to both wanting to be around people and also needing time by myself. Being a highly sensitive person sometimes is categorized by the acronym DOES, D-O-E-S. So the D stands for depth of processing. So HSPs just process things deeply. They don't go through life and are more sort of casual about their processing of things. Again, it's not like they're trying to process deeply, they just do. And they process everything deeply. And so that leads to the O, which stands for overstimulation. If I'm walking, let's say, through a crowded mall or an amusement park, I will become much more overstimulated and overwhelmed much sooner than my husband, who is not an HSP. Now, he's sensitive in that he's kind, to me, and he's supportive and he's loving and all those ways that we normally use the word sensitive, but he's not a highly sensitive person such that those kinds of things would overwhelm him. He is an introvert, so he prefers to be alone or with a very small group of people, but he's not overstimulated by things like loud noises, bright lights, crowds like at an amusement park, and I am. So I can be at a place like that. Like Eric loves amusement parks, and I can go with him, but we generally get season passes for an amusement park, not only to save money, because you pay for the passes once and go all year, but also so that I can only go for 2 or 3 hours and then we leave. We don't generally go for 12 hours. That would be my living hell at an amusement park for 12 hours. I would be physically sick. In fact, I remember as a kid, I had a very good friend, and she's not an HSP at all. And she liked things that were stimulating activities, she liked sports. She liked downhill skiing. She liked swimming way out into the ocean and riding the waves. She liked amusement parks. And I was the absolute opposite. And so I would go with her to Disneyland or to the beach or whatever, and I would inevitably end up getting very sick. I mean, to the point of almost passing out. I'd be throwing up. I would have a migraine. I mean, I can get overstimulated so much faster than a lot of people that I know. I also am very sensitive to food. Many of you know me and know that I don't eat gluten. I don't drink alcohol unless it's a tiny bit for Holy Communion. I don't have a lot of caffeine. I have some, but not a lot. I don't eat meat, and I stay away from a lot of like dairy products and eggs and other animal products. It might seem like a super strict diet, but and I guess it is to a lot of people. But and I also don't eat a lot of sweets or junk food. But I'm careful because I'm so affected. I'm just so affected by everything that I eat. I also need a lot of sleep. I sleep 8 to 9 hours a night. I absolutely have to have 8 to 9 hours, and HSPs do. We need that time to pull away, decompress, stop all the sensory overload. It's just too much. You know, some people can live on 5 or 6 hours of sleep a night. I would be an absolute mess. I would be useless to everybody. I would be so cranky and highly emotional and just not good as a wife, mother, friend, pastor, just not good. So I get my 8 to 9 hours of sleep every night. So the depth of processing is such that things are processed very deeply so that I get overwhelmed and HSPs get overwhelmed and overstimulated easily. That means that I never go on roller coasters that are very scary. I mean, I go on like super mild ones, and I only started that in, like my late teens. Growing up as a kid, I was the only kid I knew who didn't go on roller coasters. They're too stimulating. I don't like falling. And people say, well, the roller coasters are safe and you're going to be fine. Of course, I never thought I wouldn't be fine. It's not that I don't think I'm going to be fine. It's that the feeling of falling is too much. It feels like I'm dying. It's so horrible. I don't go in haunted houses. I don't watch violent movies. They very much affect me. And I mean the violent movies that most people would call minimally violent, like James Bond. I'm not talking about horror movies or gore. I absolutely would not watch that. But even movies like where somebody's like pointing a gun at someone, I will probably have nightmares. It just, again, it affects me too deeply. And violent video games, forget it. Like I can't do that. And my husband and my son can. And they've said to me for years, well, it's just a movie. I know it's just a movie. There's nobody doubting that it's just a movie. I know I'm not actually in danger. It's just that something about it is too much for me. And it's that overstimulation. So moving on to the E. The E often stands for empathy. Because I have a depth of processing in how I see things, I feel very empathic. Like if somebody comes into my presence and they're going through an emotional situation, I feel like I will always understand them, even if I haven't gone through it, because I feel like I can feel what they're feeling. Not at the level that they're feeling it. So if somebody's crying in front of me, it's not like I'm going to burst into tears. I probably won't. But I will feel a portion of what they seem to be feeling. So there's never a time where somebody comes to me directly and says that they're feeling something, and I'm just like, I have no idea what they're saying. I always know what they're saying. Every now and then, somebody will tell me what somebody else is feeling. And every now and then I can't understand it. And that's really weird to me because I'm so used to understanding people. So I like to talk to people directly because then I very much can understand, or it feels to me like I can understand where they're coming from. I think that probably makes me a better pastor than if I didn't have that kind of sensitivity. I never tell people like, snap out of it, no problem, no big deal. What are you so upset about? Like it wouldn't even occur to me to say something. Not only is that just rude and insensitive to say that, but I don't feel that. I feel like I feel what they're feeling. I feel like I get why it would be important to them and why they would feel whatever it is they're feeling, whether it's anxiety or anger or depression or something like that. I am, though, prone to depression. I am, because I can feel what people are feeling. And so sometimes if there's a crisis going on, like in our country, if I hear that, people were killed, or I remember when the Pulse nightclub in Florida was shot up. It was like, it's an LGBTQ club, and or that's at least the majority of the people there were in that community, and there were people there that were murdered. And I was like just so sad, and I just felt very, very depressed. And I remember talking to somebody, and he's like, "What does that have to do with you?" Now that could seem insensitive because he said that, because I was like, well, it has nothing to do with me personally, but I mean, I'm empathetic for the people there. But I get what he's saying, because he's kind of like, for a person like me, if I let everything get to me, I would be disabled every day of my life, and I wouldn't be any good to anybody. So it's actually helpful for someone to say, what does that have to do with you? And for me to go, okay, it doesn't have anything directly to do with me. And so I don't need to go down the road of feeling so broken up about it, because if I did that, I wouldn't be useful to other people and trying to bring some healing to other people. Let's see, the E is for empath. So a sense of having empathy with other people. What is the S? I'm looking at my notes. Sensing the subtle. Yeah, I definitely sense the subtle. Yeah, for sure. I mean, if there's a subtle change in temperature, I can sense it. If there's a subtle anxiety in the room, I can sense it. I mean, I walk into a room and nobody has to say anything and I know what's going on. Just the emotional feeling of it. So anyway, these all sound like weaknesses and flaws, but they're also strengths, because if you are this kind of person, these are the people that are the therapists, the pastors, the hospice nurses, the artists, the poets, those who not only see the subtleties of life, but enjoy the subtleties of life. I've never felt that the spiritual world didn't exist. I've never thought, like, is there really a God? Because, and nothing wrong with that question, but I've always just sort of feel like I can sense God. And I sense my parents. My parents have both died, but I sense them around me. Like, I sense their presence. So there are some good things about being highly sensitive as well. It's not just the bad things. But it really helps to know this about yourself if this is who you are. And I think if you're interested in this, put a comment down below or put the thumbs up to like the video. If I see interest in this, then I might do a second video of some things that I have found are very helpful if you're a highly sensitive person, or helpful if you are in a relationship with one. Because apparently we don't operate like most of the world. 80% of the world is not highly sensitive, only 20 is. So, especially in our culture, which values other ways of being, values, strength and extroversion and getting out there and just kind of conquering, being a highly sensitive person, you're going to live life in a very different way. So I can do another video about some things that are super helpful. And I really have found some things that are very, very helpful. So let me know if you'd like to hear more about that. Thank you so much for listening. And I hope you learn, if you're like this, if you're not like this, I hope you learn to just love yourself. Every aspect of creation is not made to be like another aspect of creation. You were made how God intended. And so you have strengths and weaknesses that might be different than other people but you are beautiful and you are beloved in your own way. Thanks so much for listening. Have a good day. Bye-bye.